Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Hello again and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. I am Phillip Sydney, your host. The topic for discussion today is the status of the agricultural and fisheries sector in St. Lucia. With me in studio to discuss this topic is somebody that is not new to the agricultural sector. He once was the vet officer, the chief vet officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, attached to the Vet and Livestock Services Division in the ministry. He also was the director of Agricultural Services, again attached to the Ministry of Agriculture. And he has graduated to what I call the CEO of the ministry, but of course we know it as the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. He is an individual who is well known to agriculture, and of course, he is a no-nonsense person when it comes to his work, a very serious individual, very passionate about his work, and of course, he does everything by the book, so you can understand who you're dealing with. At this point, I would like to introduce you to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Production, Fisheries, Cooperatives and Rural Development, Dr. Darius Gabriel. Welcome to the program, and thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure to be here.
Doc, it has been 1 year. I have been trying to get you on the program, and I realized I had to give you some time to get your feet wet. And now I think you have warmed that seat enough for 1 year to date. I think it's time that you give St. Lucia an evaluation of what is happening under your tenure for that year. So can you go back a bit, 1 year to date? What has happened in the agriculture and fishing sector?
Well, thank you, as I said earlier, and thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's my pleasure to give some level of accounting to the St. Lucian public with respect to the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Production, Fisheries, Cooperatives and Rural Development. You're correct. In fact, tomorrow will mark my 1 year anniversary. It's been quite an exciting time, needless to say. We have seen many interesting things happen in the sector. For today's program, though, I thought I would start by outlining the performance of that sector during the last fiscal year, because this gives us a sense of the challenges that we face and gives us an idea as well in terms of some of the things we need to do in terms of achieving the policy objectives of government. Right? So, generally speaking, the agricultural sector grew by a very marginal amount of 0.3% last fiscal year. That was led predominantly by a good performance of non-banana crops. Right? Bananas themselves actually grew. The exports of banana, production of bananas, and export of bananas to the UK grew by 0.6%. However, in spite of that increase in exports, revenue flows from UK exports did not show a similar increase. So whilst exports increased marginally of bananas, revenue flows remained flat. However, on the local market, supermarket purchases increased quite significantly to some 15.6%. Hotel purchases also increased 2%. Now, what is the signal that this is sending to us? That while we can see that there are challenges in the banana sector, I think it's vital that we also allow ourselves to see the opportunities that are there and that we position ourselves to take advantage of those opportunities.
Definitely.
I would wish, with your permission, to speak a little bit more about that as we go along in the discussion. So we can jump now. That's a synopsis of the banana performance for that year. We can jump to non-banana crops. Non-banana crops were the flagship in terms of performance last year. The supermarket purchases increased some 19%, hotel purchases some 15%. So non-banana crops performed very, very well. That was the flagship. With respect to livestock, there was mixed performance. There were some very significant increases in the cost of livestock feed. $4 increase per bag in the cost of a bag of feed for poultry, and some $11 per bag increase in the cost of feed for swine. Well, the net result of all of that is swine in particular realized a decreased performance, whereas poultry, particularly the broiler sector, managed, however, to continue to show increased performance. So as of last year, the performance had increased by some 13.2%, but current figures show that actually poultry performance has continued to improve. Poultry production has continued to increase, and that as a result, we are at a level that demands some more attention in terms of how that sector can be assisted in establishing itself in the marketplace. With respect to egg production, there was a marginal drop of about 2.3%, caused mostly by some challenges in terms of the feed and placement of the old chicks and that kind of stuff in terms of scheduling, which kind of made it difficult for us to meet the demand of last Christmas. So we are hoping to nip that in the bud this time around. With respect to fisheries now, there was a general decline of some 4%, a contraction of 4% in the performance of the fisheries sector. All species registered a decline, with the exception of tuna, flying fish, lobster, and there's one other species that doesn't come to mind. So there are just 4 species that realized an increase in growth. All others were down. So broadly, as an overview, that's been the performance of the sector as of the end of last fiscal year. Obviously, we don't yet have the data to show exactly where we are at this point in time. But I thought that kind of data provides us with a starting point. In order to get to anywhere, you need to know, first of all, where you are and where you want to go. The policy objective is to completely transform this agricultural sector and get it back to a point where it is a much more meaningful contributor to GDP. Maybe it may not necessarily achieve previous levels, but it can certainly improve on its contribution to GDP.
But barring all of that, why, for example, that our food import bill during that same time, well, skyrocketed, if I may say so. My concern is for some of the basic commodities, things like what we grow, cabbage, tomatoes, sweet pepper. It did skyrocket. But so why vis-a-vis the sort of achievements you mentioned? But so why you think?
Well, it's difficult for one to say concretely why. I mean, you can assume that maybe St. Lucians are eating much more food. Understand, though, that some of what we produce is consumed at the hotel level. Some of it is consumed locally. I think the more important message for me, really, with respect to the size of our food import bill isn't even necessarily why. Whatever it is, if it means we are consuming food, I would say bravo. Let's consume more safe, healthy food. Let's consume more local food. What I see in the $400 million food import bill is that huge opportunity that exists for agriculture.
Hold that thought, because we're moving a bit fast. You are watching Agriculture on the Move. We're due for a break. Right back. Stay tuned.
Our agriculture can be threatened when persons or travelers bring with them foreign plants or animals into our country. Please check with the Crop Protection Unit at telephone number 468-5601 or 450-2375 or the Veterinary Services Division at 468-5621, who will advise you as to what is allowed into the country.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. With me in studio is our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Production, Fisheries, Cooperatives and Rural Development, Dr. Darius Gabriel, and we're discussing the status of the agricultural and fisheries sector in St. Lucia. We were talking about, you know, the import bill, and I'm wondering, Doc, in terms of our programming at the local level, at the extension level, isn't that an area that we can look at and see, okay, tell the farmers out there, you know, there's a huge pie out there that you can bite in so that that can increase your profitability?
Absolutely. As I was saying, that $400 million, this should always be in our minds as we pursue work in agriculture. It is, in my mind, not even necessary to aim for the 400 million. In fact, it's probably unlikely that we can totally produce locally all of what is consumed in St. Lucia, the processed products and the other items that cannot be grown in St. Lucia.
That's right.
We need to first of all establish realistically what is the exact percentage of that we think we can actually produce and sell.
Right.
Now, when that is done, you have already raised a very important issue of, and work is ongoing with respect to that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a while. When that is done, you now have the challenges with respect to production scheduling and production monitoring. As an old extensionist yourself, I'm sure you'd appreciate some of those challenges. It's part and parcel of the business of agriculture, and I will make a slight aside here to make a point that I've always been wanting to make publicly. One of the challenges we face in agriculture is the idea that there's business and then there's agriculture, and we need to stop that.
Yes, yes.
It's all business. You can be in the business of agriculture, you can be in the business of carpentry, you can be in the business of whatever, fishing, you can be in the business of manufacturing, of tourism. It's all business. So I want to leave here at least with that message to everyone. It should be business. And in that respect, I have to say that I've been very encouraged by some of the interest that I've been seeing from the private sector. But to not lose the thread and to go back to the issue of production scheduling and production monitoring, there are also challenges there. Crops have a specific cycle. They also have times when they produce and times when they don't produce. So one of the things I'd like to see is that our farmers, our producers, must take on board the science of agriculture a little more. I think too much of what is happening in the sector, not all of it, but too much of it may be ignoring the scientific reality of agricultural production. So agriculture is a science, and you can do so much. There's some crops you will not be able to produce in St. Lucia. There's some crops you cannot produce at certain times of the year. Some crops are going to give you a short cycle. Others are going to produce over a longer period. So all parties must understand that, and we must position the sector to be able to produce what the market demands in a sustained manner over a prolonged period of time.
Definitely.
One of the things that is really helping in terms of sorting out exactly what it is we can produce is the interest that has been shown by the hotel industry. One might argue that it's more than interest now because it has now been translated into action. So, for example, this very Friday coming, there's going to be an agricultural symposium at the Rec St. Lucia. And the objective of that symposium is to outline to producers, local producers, what are the needs of the hotel industry with respect to agriculture. It is also to help the hotel industry understand what are the constraints faced by the farming community in terms of meeting those market demands, meeting that market opportunity. In addition, it will allow us as a ministry also to outline the steps, the actions that we can take to help producers meet market demands. But what is important about this is that this was not initiated by the Ministry of Agriculture. This was initiated by the Hotel and Tourism Association. In fact, the third objective of that particular meeting is to explain to farmers how the SLHT has a fund that they call the factoring fund. And the idea is to explain to farmers how this fund is going to operate. That fund, and I don't want to describe it for SLHT, but I'll give you my still somewhat limited understanding of it. The fund was set up by the SLHT with the participation of various hotels to undertake various actions, in the country that might contribute to the hotel industry. Amongst those would be how to improve the relationship with the agricultural sector, how to purchase more locally. In fact, the hotels have been telling us that specifically. We wish to purchase more locally, much more locally. They've shown us how much they import, the dollar figure, and they're saying to us, look, if you could get only half of this, think of the...
Definitely.
Right? Which is why I'm saying that it is very important not to lose oneself in the challenges. Yes. You must be mindful of them. You must have strategies in place to deal with them. But we must recognize the opportunities. There are many, many opportunities presenting themselves now that the sector must be aware of. Earlier this morning, I heard somebody speaking about pineapples, for example. Well, there's been a lot of engagement between ourselves and the French concerns who are interested in a project by which pineapples could be exported to the French territories, to Martinique. The idea is to make a sparkling drink from pineapples. There are apparently characteristics that our pineapple has that is favorable for that kind of process. And they're very willing to work with us to get our tissue culture lab, for example, certified for the export of tissue culture plants to Martinique. Since we are on Martinique, for example, let me point you to another opportunity, ornamental flowers, which is something in the context of St. Lucia. Often we speak agriculture and we think only of food. But there's ornamental flowers, for example. And there are many entities who have expressed interest in ornamental flowers, many Martinican concerns that have come here. We've got friendly governments who have indicated a willingness to assist us in improving the quality and quantity of ornamental flowers, and in fact, in penetrating regional markets. Okay. Right?
There are a number of other projects I know that are on stream. Can you, maybe list them in terms of priority, or that's for you to decide. But I know there are a lot of them out there.
I might say something that I shouldn't say. For me, all of them are priority.
I understand.
That's why we implemented them.
Definitely.
Right? Well, which one shall I begin with?
Let's start with the YEP program, because
why don't we? Yes. I think the YEP is a nice one to begin with. Well, most people would know that there's been a lot of effort at implementing the YEP project for a while now. I think I'm quite happy to say that we expect that come December of this year, that first group of students will be up and running. Sometimes project implementation involves unforeseen challenges, involves the interaction between systems, different systems that can delay things unduly, but that's just part and parcel of project implementation. So whilst the YEP has not quite moved with the speed that we would have liked, we're quite happy now that things are beginning to move. For example, the equipment that was required for the YEP, almost all of it is down here. Beautiful. So the greenhouses, the tractors, and so on. The issue of the land preparation and land, the listing of the lands to the participants, the subdivision of lands, that's done. Beautiful. So a lot of the groundwork has been done. The training of the participants has been done as well. So all that remains now that the greenhouses are here on the.
Yeah, hold that thought. We'll due for another break. You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Due for another break. Stay tuned.
There are many opportunities in agriculture, and broiler production is one such enterprise. For further information, contact the Veterinary and Livestock Division at 468-5621.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. Doc, there's a lot to discuss as far as the agricultural programs are concerned, but we do not want to leave out fisheries. I know there's a lot coming on stream as far as fisheries is concerned. I know of the two jetties, the one in Pralle and the one down in Savans Bay. Can you give us an update on all of these projects?
Sure. Let's start with the jetties project. This is moving on apace. As with all projects, there are, as I said, those unforeseen challenges that are coming on, but I think so far the personnel involved have demonstrated an ability to address those challenges. So we are at the phase now where we are procuring the material for the construction of those jetties from overseas. That is the actual supply or that material is expected to arrive within a 6 to 8 week time frame. Once that gets here, we engage a local contractor The designs, all the preparatory work has been done. The design has been sorted out and so on. So once the material gets here, we begin construction. Okay. It's one of those things. If we don't manage to, we may not manage to complete it actually, given the time that it's required to actually build the jetty. But certainly by early next year, we should have the 2 jetties completed. Okay. But since we're on fisheries, we should also speak of, for example, the Fisheries Development Project, which is a Republic of China and Taiwan funded project, just as is the jetties project. That project is a very important project for us because that project has different components. One of it is capacity building amongst fishers with respect to fish handling, with respect to food safety, for example, with respect to boating safety. Very important issues for us as a ministry. But it also has a component that relates to the development of fisheries infrastructure and equipment for use by fishers, which kind of feeds, it doesn't feed, but also in the context of fisheries, our fish landing sites, for example, will benefit from grant funding that we've just received or that has just been we've just formally signed a grant agreement with the government of Japan for some 500 million yen, approximately 14 million EC dollars. And that is going to be used for the development of fisheries infrastructure and equipment, procurement of equipment and the development of fisheries infrastructure. So the whole idea is to get that sector to a point where, for example, handlers of fish are doing so in accordance with best principles with respect to food safety, that facilities for storage and sale of fish and fish products would meet required standards. It's not all going to be achieved overnight, by the way, but that's the eventual objective of the project. So the HACCP system is a central component of that program. That would be basically where it is for fish.
Okay, so back in agriculture, I know, for example, the meat processing facility, that has been on the run for a while. I know it's pretty near completion.
Yes. I mean, the meat processing facility, again, is another good example of the unexpected challenges that can turn up when you implement a project. Try as you might, you can't anticipate all of the challenges. Along the way, many changes had to be made to the original design and the original concept of that abattoir. Changes had to be made to accommodate international standards and so on and so forth. And so eventually the project has gone well beyond the time that was anticipated, as well as the level of expenditure that was anticipated. But again, happily, I think we are at a phase now where we can see that everything seems to point to a completion of that abattoir for the end of this year. The electrical supply it's been paid for, so Lucelec should be moving in to get that in place shortly, as will Wasco shortly put in the water supply. The one big stumbling block was a specialized electrical system that we had to procure from overseas, an electrical panel system. It took a while for various reasons to sort out exactly the specifications of that panel system and to arrange a contract that did not in any way place the government of St. Lucia at a disadvantage. Happily, I think we are at the point where that has all been resolved. So we expect, again, it takes some 6 to 8 weeks for that to be shipped from the UK. This gets here, it will be installed. All of the air conditioning equipment, not the air conditioning, the chilling and freezing equipment is already down at the MPF. So once that electrical panel system is installed, the freezer and chiller units will be set up, and the engineers from the firm that provided all of the equipment to the facility will be coming down to do a dry run, so to speak, of that facility to ensure that everything is in working order and we're good to go.
Okay. The other thing we're running quickly is the Taiwanese, of course, funding a number of projects. I know, let us look at the Black Sea Gatoka unit. Yes.
Very important, actually. In fact, I'm pleased that you went back to Black Sea Gatoka. Yes, indeed, the Taiwanese have been giving us very, very significant assistance with respect to bananas, specifically Black Sea Gatoka, and I dare say we're quite thankful for that. The control of Black Sea Gatoka is very important if the banana industry is going to thrive. If it's not controlled, if it's not managed properly, it actually has the potential to wipe out the industry. So up to this point, the Black Sikatoka Management Unit has been doing a fantastic job in managing that disease. But the project is not limited to Black Sikatoka control. It also includes diversification around bananas, right? Yes. Which is also a very important component. And so that is also assisting us in our own diversification drive. With respect to bananas concretely, since we are on the issue of bananas, I also want to point out our producers must challenge themselves to increase productivity. It's one thing to manage the pests and diseases that affect the product, but we also must put in place the right practices to ensure that we optimize production per unit.
That's right.
Right now, the average performance, and there are exceptions, there are some very good farmers who are doing very well, but the average seems to be hovering in the region of 3 to 5 tons per acre. And the experts are telling me we should be aiming for 15 to 20 tons per acre.
We've done it before.
There you go. And I'm saying, especially now, we need to do so. And whilst we're doing so, we also need to improve our presence on the regional market. That's another opportunity that exists for us that we have not quite positioned ourselves to take advantage of. And the other opportunities as well.
The broiler industry, just briefly, I know there's some concerns. We are 25%. We're hoping to get up to 40%. What are the challenges there?
Okay, as I was alluding to earlier when I was giving the performance figures, the broiler industry has grown. And the data that we have currently available clearly shows that production on the ground is already at the 25% level. And given what we know of expected new investment in the sector, it's going to outstrip that 25% by a long way. So we think the time is right to do whatever we can to carve out a space in the market for that sector, which is not only growing but showing signs of further growth. I think you can't escape the fact that, for example, currently the broiler industry is on par with the performance of the banana sector.
In 10 seconds, any final words from you, sir?
Yes. Opportunity. I think, as I said, we must always be mindful of the challenges. We must have plans in place to deal with them. But we must always see the opportunities and position ourselves to take advantage of those opportunities. There are many of them. There are many more that I would have wished to speak to you about. There's a Propel project, for example, that we haven't spoken about. There are many others. We need to focus on the opportunities.
Yeah, I think we need for a part 2 on our program. There's so much to think. I would like to thank you, Dr. Gabriel, for coming on the program. We have reached the end of the program, Agriculture on the Move. I would like to thank you, the viewers, for viewing. And any more information, of course, call the Minister of Agriculture for more information. I want to thank Dwayne and his technical team at GIS and NTN for facilitating that program. And hope to see you next week for another program, Agriculture on the Move. Until then, I want you to eat fresh, St. Lucia's best. I am Phillip Sydney saying goodbye and God bless.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the Move.
Agricole en mouvement.